Hey guys, Lawton here with Verified Investing. Back with another Verified AMA. I hope you guys all had an amazing weekend. Um, yeah, it's been a crazy day for me, but we'll get into that in a bit. But anyways, again, my name is Lawton Ho with Verified Investing. I go live every single day that the markets are open, and sometimes when they're not, from 12:30 to 1:15 to answer your questions. I hope you guys are doing well today. So the way this works is you can submit your questions down below, but by scanning this QR code, you can either scan this QR code to submit your questions or visit the verifiedinvesting.com homepage. There you can submit your questions for me. With that being said, what's going on, guys? My car's still in the shop. I went to go pick up a rental, and then this morning from the airport, and I sat out there in the airport parking lot waiting for my car rental for just about 2 hours in the sun, and it still didn't get back to me. And then so I came to work, and I still don't have a car. Yeah, it's just awful. Sucky situation. Feels like I haven't been here in a while. Feels like we haven't had I haven't done an AMA in a while. Feel kind of out of it, but we're gonna do our best. Try and get some good questions in. All right, tons of questions coming in. So let's kind of hop into things. Let me go ahead and share my charts. Let's hop into things. So Wes says, wondering your levels for stocks. My average is 854. Unfortunately, my next buy is at 690. But wondering if there's another level higher you might see for me to DCA. My level on SOXS, my next add. So my average on stocks is around 794. My next add is going to be at $6.80. You can always go ahead and add ahead of that, but that's just where personally my add is going to be. 780 is going to be my add. Yeah, down day on stocks as the United States announces a trade deal with Europe. So we'll see. Christopher says, hi, Lawton. What's up, Christopher? With the topping tail on Bitcoin, does that mean that the longer topping tail holds the bearish, Bitcoin becomes in the near term? Not necessarily, but I still am bearish on Bitcoin. Did have this nice sell, this nice fall here on a 114, but couldn't quite fall enough. Sandcop says, can you please do medium long-term TA on Adobe? Let's take a look at Adobe here. Well, I really feel out of it today. I was in the live day trading room from my phone, trading in the parking lot of the airport. I would not recommend that. Don't do that. So for me here on Adobe, you have this nice down sloping trend line. Down sloping trend line. See if I can figure out. Yep. Nice down sloping trend line favors a move up, but we kind of want to see a break of this trend line first. You could argue that there's the potential formation of a head and shoulders incoming, inverse head and shoulders, excuse me. Say that we just need to make this right shoulder right. But ooh, I don't like that. You could say that, yeah, this is the neckline. You would likely need to see something like this, right? And if that was the case, then you'd see a move higher. But only 6%, right? That measured move is only about 6%. So not the highest. Not the not the highest. But I mean, I think Adobe favors a move to the upside. We just got to break these kind of down sloping trend lines. Mike says, well, what levels would you suggest buying the VIX? I think we're all pretty bullish on the VIX here at verified investing. I know Gareth is. I'd be comfortable buying anywhere under $15 on the VIX. Justin says, can you look at Litecoin? Sure. Let's take a look at Litecoin. Is there a day trade long? Day trade. I mean, you could do this daily bottom here if you absolutely wanted a day trade. You can look to enter somewhere here, 109.78, or maybe around 109.50 for a day trade if you wanted to go long. This is where I would likely enter around 109.50. It's like that nice psychological number of 109.5. All right, let's see here. Michael says, can you look at Ethereum Classic? What's the ticker for that? What's the ticker for that? ETC, Ethereum Classic. All right, let's take a look. Ethereum Classic. Turn off this view app. Okay, so this is what I see on Ethereum Classic. I've had this nice move up, kind of falling since then, pulling back a bit. You have the beginning of a formation of this down sloping trend line. Actually could argue that it's bullish, but you also see that ETHC also made a take a look here, has this upsloping trend line. It's starting to trade off of, bounce off of, and looking for a move lower on. So for me on this, ETC USDT. Favors, I would say that if it can break, we have these two kind of trend lines creating almost like a pseudo wedge. It's kind of like a really small wedge, right? You're talking about a really, really small and thin wedge here. I would say that it favors a move lower. If its upsloping trend line breaks, it will likely fall about 19-ish%. I could see that if it can break down to that, particularly if Bitcoin does fall as well. But yeah, for me, I would say that Ethereum Classic favors a move lower if it can break down from this upsloping trend line, which it looks like it likely will within the next couple of days. But you have to remember that all of these coins, right, are predicated on the price of Bitcoin. Yeah. They're all based on the price of Bitcoin. Okay. See what else we got. Sandcup says, hey again. What's up, Sandcup? Hope you're doing well. I don't have a leveraged account for trading US stocks. Okay, given this, how do you suggest navigating the trade alerts? The portfolio percentage recommendations. If you don't have a leveraged account, you can either pick and choose what positions to enter, or enter positions about maybe 50% of the portfolio, like you only using half of the amount of portfolio allocation. So if we say we're in at 5%, you'd do 2.5%. That's something you could definitely consider doing. Nathan says, good morning, Lon. What do you see for PFE Pfizer? For Pfizer, have this nice upsloping trend line. Nice upsloping trend line here. Potentially, right? You could argue that this is a head and shoulders pattern, right? I don't like the gaps are there, but you can't, the pattern is the pattern, right? Still would be a valid head and shoulders pattern. I got to drink some water. I don't know. I feel kind of low energy right now. All right, let's bring it back. All right, we're good, guys. All right. Sorry about that. This morning is just exhausting. So anyways, with Pfizer, we have this nice head and shoulders pattern here. Let's see the measured move on this. And we also have this beautiful upsloping trend line. So let's take a look here at this Pfizer. Should we take a measured move from the top of the head to the neckline? You're likely looking at a move down 8%. Now, that's not too much, right? In fact, 8% isn't even something that we'd be terribly comfortable with trading on a looking for on a on a swing trade, right? We're generally looking for at least 15%. So that's not something I would short, but it's still a great pattern, still a valid head and shoulders pattern. So for me, if it breaks down, it looks bearish, right? But here's something you need to consider. Pfizer is still beaten down though, right? You're talking about down 60% from its highs, right? But it's up 17% from the Liberation Day lows. So yes, it's a head and shoulders pattern. Yes, it's at the lows of the chart. I still think it could play out. However, the likelihood of, let's turn this into a teachable moment. Hold on. Forgot about these. Okay. The likelihood of a bearish pattern playing out at the lows of the chart is going to be lower than the likelihood of it playing out at the highs of the chart. In this case, for Pfizer, expecting a move lower here. Okay. Expecting potential move lower here. Michael says, when will you be added to the option service? I think your style will add value and I look forward to it. Cool. I'm so glad you're excited. It should be like in either next month, sometime around next month. Let's see here. Renica says, hi, Lawton. Sorry about your car experiences this morning. You're fine, Renica. Don't worry about it. We're good. Joined the live day trading room for the first time, and I was hoping you would explain why they use fractionals instead of percentages of portfolio to describe how much they're putting in a trade. Well, fractions are percentages, right? 1/10 is 10%. 1/7 is 1/7 is around 14%, right? So we do use we are using percentages, but we're just using fractions to convey that because it's easier to say 1/7 than it is to say 14%, right, of our portfolio. So we like to keep it nice and uniform in that way. So, but if you have more questions, I'd be very happy to answer them. For example, if you have $100,000 portfolio, a tenth would be a tenth of the 100,000. That'd be around $10,000. Okay. Teresa says, "Hi, Lawton. What's up, Teresa? What's going on? I just hit my stop loss on WeRide. I did pretty well based on TRS buy signal. Are we headed back down? WeRide, let's take a look here on WeRide. So WeRide, yeah. Are we headed back down? Hard for me to say if we're headed back down. It's kind of crazy, right? Look at this price action today. WeRide went all the way up here. It was up over 11% for the day. Has actually gone negative. It's received, robo taxi permit in Saudi Arabia. That is positive. That is actually good news. So kind of surprising to see it come down. However, it does, like, this stock is kind of like a meme stock in that it's a small cap company. People love talking about it. So if there's good news, this thing is going to absolutely take off. But if there's ever any bad news, price can come down. And price action today up 11% could likely just be some profit taking. People saying, "Oh my God, I woke up, I'm up 11% on my from Friday. I'm gonna take my profit." So just kind of that rug pull. But the news is good. So I don't know why WeRide would continue to fall, other than the fact that it's kind of just like a meme play. So yeah. So yeah. But you saw this nice down sloping trend line, kind of pulled back. If you could break above it, would favor a move higher, in my opinion, to at least 16% higher. But we'll see if WeRide can retrace and come back to this down sloping trend line. For those of you just joining me, again, my name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing, and I do this every single day, weekday. I must say, I go live from 12:30 to 1:15. I answer all of your questions. You can just scan that QR code or visit verifiedinvesting.com to ask your question. Mark says, "What do you think about RCL going into earnings?" That's a great question. Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. Ooh, RCL. What's going on with RCL? So here's what I'm thinking. RCL is at the highs of the charts. Okay. What do we know about things that are at the highs of the charts, guys? What do we know? We know that if you have earnings at the highs of the charts, can you go higher? Yes. But you favor a move lower, right? Let's say you've gone on an amazing run from the 7th of April up 115% to the upside, right? So 100% favors a move up. Super like such a big move at its new all-time highs. So retail gets excited, wants to get in, right? And these earnings certainly helped, right? Pays a dividend. People like holding and buying the stock. However, when you're at the highs of the charts, what are your expectations? If you're already at all-time highs, right? Like, think about it like this, okay? And I'm going to turn this into a teachable moment. So think about it like this, okay? Pretend that I am I'm an athlete, right? Let's say I'm a swimmer, right? And I swim the 100-meter freestyle, okay? And every single time I swim, I continue to make new records. I continue to perform well. So let's say I go into another swim meet, right? If I win, right, and I've won the last like 10 swim meets, right, the expectation is that I'm gonna win. In this case, the expectation that RCL is going to do well, right? But people aren't going to get as excited, right, for me if I don't set another world record. In the same way that the expectations for RCL are already high. So in order to make a move higher, it really needs to blow away earnings and expectations. The same can be said at the bottom, lows of the charts. Let's say that the stock is down, and instead of me being a world-class athlete that's won the last 10 swim meets, imagine that I am I'm just me, right? And then I go into the national swim meet, right? Expectations for me are low, right? But if I don't even have to win the meet. If I come in the top 3, then my stock, the excitement for me will go up so much more because the expectations are lower. The same is true for RCL. You're at the highs of the chart. You have this beautiful upsloping trend line that favors a move lower. You're going into earnings. So does this favor a move down at all-time highs at earnings? Yes, 100%, absolutely. But can it go higher? Yes, 100%. Absolutely. But in order to do that, it would have to surpass expectations on its earnings so significantly to cause a big jump here on RCL. Okay? I hope that made sense. I hope that was a good analogy to help you guys kind of understand earnings, particularly for stocks at its all-time highs. But yeah, I'm going to be live for the next 23 minutes. So drop your questions down in the chat and let's keep it going. So I hope that made sense, Mark. Yusuf says, does XRP look bullish or bearish? Well, on what time frame? If you're looking on the 1 minute, let's take a look at the 1 minute. I would say it's bearish, barely, right? It's breaking an upsloping trend line, kind of. So I'm expecting a move lower about maybe 0.5%. But on the day, it wouldn't surprise me if we got a move 3% higher. So when you say that, what time frame you're talking about? I'm going to cover the daily time frame because I'm assuming you're talking about a swing trade. But it's always important, guys, to give me as much context as possible. The more information you give me, the better of an answer that I can give you. Okay, so let's take it to XRP. Had this beautiful upsloping trend line that it did appear to pull back from, but it also had this beautiful inverse head and shoulders pattern that hit the measured move right here about 51% higher to $3.6, right? $3.60. So favoring a pullback from this area. But for me on XRP, I am just going to turn off this view app. I would argue that this looks a little bearish, right? You have this big red bar candle down move, and you're kind of putting in a bear flag. Of course, we need a little more data, but it would not surprise me if this came down. I would argue that it's bearish, looking for support on XRP down about 8% lower, just around $2.92. But somewhere around here. All right. Let me know if that makes sense, Yusuf. Sergey or Serge says, are there any other factors that would weaken a trend line's probability to hold support or resistance other than frequent price touches? Yeah, it could be like, let's say I had this, let's go over here. Let's go over here, right? Let's say I have a stock chart that's going like this. Right, and let's say I have a trend line, right? I draw a trend line, something like this, right? Well, let's say this continues higher and it doesn't hit my trend line, but it moves significantly. Look at this. It moves past here significantly. It gets close, it doesn't hit it, and then moves significantly again. You can consider a couple of things. Either your trend line needs to be readjusted, or, let's say I saw this move and already came back in, it only kissed it, right? Like we see this particularly in day trading. If we have a certain level, right, we draw a trend line on something. Let's take a look at Apple, right? Let's say for whatever reason on Apple, I had a shortable level. Right, right here. Okay, so I had a shortable level here around 215. Okay, and this is just whatever. It's my level. It's a level. So you see that price got so close and then pulled back, right? And then pulled back. Okay, I would likely look to readjust my entry because I understand that this level, it's come close to it and then pulled back. The likelihood is if it comes again, it might push through my level, so I can kind of push my level higher, move my level higher. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's not, I know it's not 100% exactly what you're asking for, but I hope it provided some sort of value to you. Harsh says, could you please take a look into coin? Absolutely. I'd be happy to take a look here at a Coinbase. So for me on Coinbase, yeah, wow, Coinbase pushed up very nicely, had this beautiful inverse head and shoulders. Look where it went, guys. Went just about pierced this level. And what was up here? It's IPO, right? IPO highs. It's previous all-time highs in the IPO. That's where it pushed up, actually failed to close above it, failed again, and then is coming down. You also have a beautiful, I haven't drawn this yet, upsloping trend line favoring a move lower, right? Favoring a move lower. You saw today, and look how beautiful this trend line is. I know I have like a bunch of lines everywhere. Let me just delete some of these. Right, you had this nice trend line. Look where price went today. It retraced to it, kissed it, basically hit it, and then has pulled back about 5% from that trend line. Absolutely incredible. So for me, I believe, it's not I believe, but I just, Coinbase favors a move lower from what I see in the charts, right? Of course, I've been wrong, and I say it every single time. Like, I've been wrong before. I'm going to be wrong again. I'm wrong all the time. But for me and Coinbase, these are the levels I'm targeting at bounce. 12% lower around 334.64. And this other gap fill here just under $308 on Coinbase. Murd says, hi, Lawton. What's up, Murd? Sending love all the way from Singapore. I love Singapore. I've been there, I think, twice. It's really hot, really humid there. But I lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years. Been to Singapore, got food poisoning there. But I love Singapore. It's just kind of hot sometimes. I'm sure you understand. Anyways, just wondering how your trading investing journey started and how you got to verified investing. I'm just a small time trader taking trades when I can, and I was wondering if you had any advice aside from positioning, as Garrett talked about that plenty. Sure, I'd be happy to share a little bit about myself if you guys don't mind. Get back to the questions. We have 15 minutes anyways, right? So we have plenty of time. So for me, I started, I went to college. I had an undergraduate in communications. Then I got a master's degree in marketing around 2020-ish, 2019, 2020 during COVID. We all kind of traded, right? We had the GameStop. We had all that stuff, and that really intrigued me. So I got into it a little bit, but I was working in a marketing job. I previously worked for David's Bridal, their corporate, and a couple large companies. So after corporate, I decided I was going to look for something that might be local because I really missed interacting with people face to face. I got a job here at Verified Investing, doing marketing, making TikToks, all sorts of fun stuff like that. But then, they kind of saw that I was watching them, and I was making as I was making content, I started learning, right? And I wanted to kind of try my hand at it and started actually trading, right? And they saw potential in me, so they trained me. They put me through some intensive classes. I sat side by side with them for a decent amount of time, and they turned me into from somebody with little experience trading to who I am today, right? And I'm really grateful for that, right? Um, so if you're curious as to whether or not verified investing's methodology or courses or classes or ecosystem works, if it's a scam or not, you can use me as a witness, right? Use my testimony to see, like, wow, if they can turn this guy with very little experience trading into a full-blown pro trader, then imagine what they can do for someone like you with some experience already, right? But yeah, my biggest piece of advice on trading for me is risk management. I know you talk about positioning, but for me, it's like particularly with swing trades. Just using a stop loss for me. That's what I personally like to do. I'll add to my positions, but I'll know going into it like, all right, I'm not gonna lose more than 2K, 5K, 10K on a trade, right? I'm not like whatever that level is. Go in with a max loss in your head, because I know if I lose $2,000, $5,000 in this trade, it's fine. I can make it back up in a couple of trades, right? What I can't make back is like $100,000 loss, $20,000 loss, $25,000 loss, right? So sucks taking a loser, but sometimes a loss is a win. So that's the biggest for me. Terrence says 2 questions. I got 2 answers for you, Terrence. Why do trades for the dividend stocks not include a stop price? Because we're not the dividend trader is a little different in that we're not really stopping out of that because it's a dividend paying. We're playing the dividend, right? So the primary purpose of the dividend trader is to buy and hold large, good, reputable company and collect passive income through dividend payments, right? So we're not as interested in the current price of the stock as much as how much money we're going to receive from them dividend wise. Okay. And the second question is, should you use stop or stop limit? They should be effectively the same. Effectively the same. Let's see here. Monco says, hey, Lawton, thanks for back-to-back sessions. No problem. Sorry if I didn't ask the question correctly. The daily candle on CRV USDT on Sunday, isn't that just a reversal candle? Does that impact the bullish consolidation? I wouldn't say that this is necessarily bullish anyways, right? Because look at this. It could potentially be making a head and shoulders, which would be bearish, right? Did have this nice breakout, but you're expecting a pullback, right? So I wouldn't say this is bullish consolidation anyways. Wes says, wondering about IQ. Okay, Chinese Netflix. Sure. Hopefully this link will work for some trend lines I put in. Let's take a look at your charts. Always love seeing your guys' charts. And thanks for your question, Wes. All right, I like it. I like that upsloping parallel that you have there. Kind of parallel this trend line. The thing about your upper trend line is that it's like been pierced and traded around so many times on that parallel that's like somewhere around here. It's been like cut up around here so many times. I like this bottom trend line though that you had drawn, right? Predicting potential lower move, right? Should we get a break of that? But what I'd argue is I have this kind of trend line here, and there was a kind of a wedge, right? It did break out from a wedge. Looking for a retrace. I expect a bounce off of this down sloping trend line, this wedge right here on IQ. But yeah, this around 219 would be my sell. Yep, somewhere around here. But looking for a bounce off of this level. Okay, I like your question though, Wes. Mert says apologies for the food poisoning in Singapore. It's not your fault. It's not Singapore's fault. I went to Universal Singapore and they had like the Coca-Cola icy machine, and I really wanted a Coca-Cola icy, and like there's the whole tub of it, right? And he was like, I only have the very little left at the very bottom, right? Kind of gross slush. I said, I'll take it. I'll just drink it. Right? So I had like the leftovers, and that's what got me. So definitely not something with Singapore. That's yeah. All right, let's keep going. Dean says, I know you've answered this question several times before, including last Wednesday. However, it's not adding up based on Apex profit. It says 5 traders and $1 million profit based on trades. The website writes BI is up 66% year to date. Yes, working for. Well, but then your profit 13% is wrong. I would argue that it's not, right? Because I understand your point, right? I understand your point, and I appreciate your feedback. And here's what I would say, right? This is our 30-day whatever profit and loss. It's our total gain and loss, right? When you're a member, right? When you're a member of the live day trading room, right? And you have 100K in your account, whatever it is, right? Are you only going to take one trader's trade? Right? Are you only going to take one trader's trade? Are you only going to take my trade or Dr. B's trade or Ben's trade or Gareth's trade or Drew's trade? I would argue not, right? What if you only want to take Gareth's trades, right? But then, for whatever reason, right, Drew puts up a good trade, puts up a trade you'd be interested in. Should that not count, right? Realistically, right, like, yeah, you might not be able to take every single trade in the live day trading room because we have multiple traders, right? But even being conservative, saying that you're taking half of the trades, right? Half of the trades, right? Following a couple of traders, your P&L should be up 33% for the year. And that's without compounding, right? That's saying that you start with that account is $100,000. You are not, any profits that you make, you're withdrawing, right? Imagine if every single time we took profit, we left it in and let it compound. This $666,000 number would likely be above $1.5 million, right? If we factored in compounding, right? If you want to see how, let's look at the previous quarter, right? Gareth made $180,000, 18% of the portfolio by himself last quarter, right? So I don't think it's a fair assessment to say that, oh, you got to divide it by 5 and you'll be up, 13% over the year. I don't think that's a fair assessment. Right? I appreciate your feedback, but I would just have to push back on that. But I'm happy to have dialogue about it and talk about it. Let's see here. Dean says, you have mentioned that you trade one. Anyways, Leslie says IBM. Let's take a look at IBM. I'm going to go a little faster because I have only 5 more minutes, guys. For IBM, my support level was basically this pivot low at 255.57. Had a nice bottoming tail, pushed up higher. My target for IBM is currently around 266, right? Fell off of earnings, right? This is what I'm talking about earlier. Stock at the highs of the charts going to earnings, still had good earnings, positive earnings, right? Beat expectations. However, it didn't beat it by enough to warrant the price, so it fell. For me, an IBM, I'd be looking. I mean, realistically, you have a previous gap fill here around 272 that could find resistance on IBM. Luis says your thoughts going to Carvana earnings. Looks a bit negative. Yeah, I would argue the same thing, right? Again, I say this all the time. Stocks near the highs, but has had a great pullback these last couple of days, talking about 8% over the past couple of weeks, right? I have this nice downsloping trend line. Does favor a move higher if it can break from that. However, I'm not going to touch it going into earnings. But I can give you some preliminary levels, what I think could happen on Carvana. So here, let's see. We saw it move 6% off of earnings, last earnings. The earnings before that, you saw move down around 6%. So we know that the estimated move on something like Carvana is going to be around 6%. So let's take a look here and see if we can find any levels around 6% lower. We have this nice gap fill about 9% lower. That could be the line in the sand where it gets a bounce. You have this nice pivot low down here, about 15% lower. So those are two levels that Carvana could get a bounce realistically. As far as resistance is concerned, you have this pivot high around 8.5% higher, right? And then you have the previous all-time high here around 12% level. So these are generally, and if you want to screenshot, pause, whatever, these are likely going to be my levels going into Carvana's earnings. But I think, again, it favors a move to the downside, but will it come down? That's a good question, right? Hard to know. Murder says, was wondering what you think about earnings plays. I noted UNH being a beaten down stock. Absolutely. Having earnings in a bitch. Would you take in a bit? Would you take out that 250 low? For me, yeah. For me, the support is here. I think it's very, very unlikely that it pushes lower off of earnings, but we got to see, right? We got to see. I'm not interested in going long into earnings, but if I had to play it, I think it will go up. Into earnings, Yusef says, yes, your XRP analysis made sense, Lon. Thank you for input. Thank you for your question, Yusef. Leslie says, how do you determine where to set stops? Well, for me, let's say, for example, on something like UNH, right? And I'll stay a little bit longer, guys, just because I want to make sure all your questions are properly answered. Let's say I want to go long. I'm bullish on UNH on a break of this, right? On a break of this, I think it favors a move up. I could say it could favor a move up 7% at least, right? Or all the way up here to $307, right? But I would set my stop on a negation, okay? The reason why I'm bullish on UNH is because it's beaten down and it's breaking an upsloping trend line. But what if it falls? It breaks above, but it starts falling below, closes below, and then has another daily close below without a retrace to that trend line? Then I'll stop out, because the reason for getting into the trade is no longer valid, right? If I get into a trade because I believe a head and shoulders pattern is going to play out, if the head and shoulders pattern is negated, why am I still in this trade? Because I don't want to take a loser? That doesn't make sense. When you go into a trade, there's a reason you're getting in. And if your reason is no longer valid, it no longer makes sense to stay in the trade. Take a loser, move on to the next trade, live to fight another day. Something you can do is kind of find a level, right? And be like, oh, actually, yeah, my thesis was invalidated, but I found this other level and another reason to stay in the trade. If that's the case, fine, stay in your trade, right? Keep staying in your trade. But general rule of thumb is it doesn't make sense to stay in a trade that your thesis is negated on. you're just opening yourself up to more downside. Sarah says, thanks, Lawton. And the XLM part, should the Fibonacci for XLM breaches drawn from April 7th to April 15th, or the Fibonacci from July 2nd to July 4th? What are better support points? For me, I would take it from this. You could take it from either, but I take it from this low down here all the way up to here. That's what I'd take my fib from in this case. And you see price action on the 236 playing a lot. Derek says, in the live day trading room, is a group allowed to present trades, or is it just a listen to look mode? You can ask questions. You can send us charts. You can ask us about trades. You can be like, type in the chat, hey, Gareth, what do you think about this? Hey, Lawton. Hey, Drew. Hey, Ben. Hey, Dr. B. What do you think about this? Derek says, and the new name for your show is the Lawton Lunch Hour. That's a great name. Derek, last question. I'm going to answer your question, and I'm going to cut it off because I got to go. I'm going to skip lunch maybe. Who knows? And now SMCI short, extreme RSI in the hourly. Yeah, look at that. Wow, look at that. Definitely crazy RSI on the hourly. And look at the daily. This looks like a pretty good short on SMCI, not going to lie. Not going to lie. Anyways, Marin says, Lawton's a real one for this. Much appreciation, of course. Yeah, I think that it favors a move down. But anyways. All right, guys. I got to go, not because I have to eat lunch, because I'm going to skip lunch, but because I have the live day trading room. I have to go back to the trading room in like 10 minutes. So I just need to get my chart set up for that. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining me, guys. Again, my name is Lawton Ho here with Verified Investing. I do this every single day from 12:30 to 1:15. So I'll be here, same time, same place. Please consider giving us a like and a subscription on the Verified Investing YouTube channel. It would mean a lot. And thank you guys so much for your questions. Without your questions, I would just be a guy here talking to myself. If you have any final additional questions that I didn't get to, if you want to send me any charts or anything, you can always send them to me on Twitter at Lawton Investing. Go ahead, give me a follow, send me a message, and I'd be happy to take a look at any charts or answer any questions that I didn't get to today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for being a part of the Verified Investing community. Have a great day. Take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.